Alright, welcome to what I'm going to call Benefits of Bipolar Interviews. Been wanting to do these for a really long time. I've had these ideas for quite a while. I'd say I've been talking about it. But with the move and everything, as if anybody watches these, maybe the 10 or 12 of you may have noticed that it's been a while since I've done one of these. I do have some other ideas I want to do with some solo ones, but I kind of felt like I've been talking about this so damn much that I wanted to do my first one with Meghan, my girlfriend. Somehow, over 2.5 years now, she has made it this long. So I think, and we just moved. So we moved in about a month ago. And so that has been crazy. That has been really, really, really hard for me. Unfortunately, it's getting much better now, I would say, over the last 4 or 5 days to a week, thankfully, which kind of led me to actually being able to put enough thoughts together to hopefully get through this. So what I want to do is I've reached out to some people. I'm going to start following up with them, actually, and try to set up some more of these. I'd like to do one of these maybe every couple weeks, and then mix in with some more of my ideas and the videos that I want to cover. But this one I did want to do because I also find it to be really important. Obviously, living with bipolar is extremely difficult, as I cover plenty, and I talk about plenty enough, but I can't imagine what she goes through every day. Living with me, living with bipolar. It's a topic that a lot of people cover from time to time, but I just haven't seen a ton of it. And since we've been living it now for 2.5 years, and like I've said, and will continue to say, she is somehow still here with me, by her choice. Obviously, I figured we'd get a little bit more from her and see what she thinks about it all. So, welcome, Meghan. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about, not me, I know. Tell them a little bit about your work as a social worker, your schooling, and how that has helped living with me.
Okay, so like Lee has mentioned, I met Lee 2.5 years ago, and that was in the midst of my undergrad for my bachelor's of social work. So he's been along with me on this ride throughout my bachelor's and my master's, and we kind of navigated all of that together. So for some background to bipolar.
Yeah, I did a bad job of that. Why don't you introduce yourself and kind of go through a
Oh.
little bit more if you want to.
So
Like I said, first time. Forgive me.
Oh yeah, okay. So for some background, bipolar was very new to me. When he told me he had something to tell me, it's not by any means what I thought he was going to tell me. But
I told her our third date. Because I'm very open and honest, and I think we would both say definitely was very new on my living with bipolar journey, especially with any kind of semblance of stability. I don't think I really had much, if any, before I met you. A little bit, I was getting there. But I was telling somebody about it earlier today. I was like, the last time I blacked out, the very last time I blacked out was actually about a week after I met you. I went out to the bar. Somehow I had a few dollars in my pocket because I've given my dad my card. And I lost my keys that night, and I lost my phone that night. And I woke up the next morning, and I had to look at for my phone. And I found it, and I got on my walk back home, because it was in January, so it was also freezing ass cold outside and snow everywhere. I found my phone in a phone bag. I was like, there is no way I'm going to be able to keep this person in my life. And I was like, I actually think she's pretty cool. I might want to do this if I keep doing that. So a little bit of background of where I was and where you were, and I sold her a car, but we can tell that story later. That's how we met. We'll save that for another day.
Oh my god.
Anyway, so as I often do, I interrupt you. I apologize, but I just to give both sides context. So continue, sorry.
No, that's fine.
So bipolar, I told you on our third date, I kind of brought it up out of nowhere. I really given you no context at all of what it could be, and I just told you I needed to tell you something important.
Yeah, and I definitely don't know what I was expecting, but that was
Not it.
that was not it. No, but I will say, I was like, oh, okay. So, like, okay.
You
I don't really know what that means at all.
Yeah.
But as many people in my life would say, I'm not judgmental at all,
No.
and very open.
Yeah.
So as somebody with pursuing a social work major, I was aware, and I have an interest in mental health, so obviously I'm aware of bipolar and other mental illnesses, but, that...
Dating somebody with it might be a little bit different.
Right, and there's never been anyone in
it's
my
a little
life...
intimate of...
And yeah, anyone in my life, or anyone... Yeah, it's just all very new.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we navigated it and are navigating it extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Took it slow.
In the very beginning, it was...
It slowed things down,
Mm-hmm.
I think, from my angle.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was cautious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't trust myself at all.
And, I think what really helped for me is I asked a lot of questions and was very open to...
And I didn't have a lot of answers.
No, I would say you did.
Well, about myself, maybe. I think I self-awareness that came with it that I was picking up more of, but about bipolar.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I think, telling, basically being like, I don't know if it's ever going to get any better than what it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
I still drink, I still gamble a little bit at the time, and I was like, I'm trying, I'm working really hard at it, but
I will say,
life is,
I will say that I think that, to give myself a pat on the back too, I think I helped navigate that with you too, and kind of open the door.
All of it.
I was gonna open the door, yeah, and helped you kind of helped push you, because it can be scary and it's very unknown, and I don't live with bipolar disorder, so I can't even imagine trying to find all resources or education, or just somebody else that lives with bipolar, and their
and
story.
I was admittedly really bad at it.
Well, and to be fair,
it's closer.
There's not a lot of resources easily available, I feel like, that kind of show the full scope of just somebody living with bipolar. So there's a lot of roadblocks, and then,
But you really did.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard for me to dive in. For sure, it was really hard for me to dive in. Because, it's bad, but you don't really want to... Information does two things.
Mm-hmm.
It can show you everything that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
It can also show you everything that's not possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was more worried and afraid of what was not possible than what was, and obviously then you... you found International Bipolar Foundation for me. I got to figure out how to do this with my computer. I'm so bad at this, but we'll figure it out. But you found International Bipolar Foundation for me. You pushed me kind of to learn as much as I could. And when I tell my story, as you've been to one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But other people, anybody else who's seen me present my story in person, that's one of the first things I say is, you truly gave me that. Like you said, you opened the door.
Mm-hmm.
You opened the door to something I hadn't seen, hadn't been willing to, hadn't wanted to find before that. But also, you giving me a chance, you being understanding, you not running away the minute I said bipolar. We can get it, but understanding every single time that I had a really, really hard time at work, a really, really bad day, which was happening all the time there, and I canceled plans on her all the time. You always understood. You always gave me that time, that space that I needed, and that was invaluable, and I certainly wouldn't have lasted until now without that. But yeah, so that kind of gets people caught up, I think, a little bit. We really took things slowly for a long time. This is the first time we truly moved in together. It was 2.5 years in, now in another completely different city, so that's adding some things onto it. But go ahead.
No, and I was gonna say too, it's easier to say all of this too, for people that are for people that are going through it, when I'm in the moment too, when, if you're struggling with something, I'm also human, and I also suffer from anxiety at times, so you mix those two together, and it can be it can be really difficult, but I think, again, back to the communication is really key, and, especially in relationships, and kind of understanding that sometimes you both can't be 100%.
Yeah.
I get that from Brene Brown.
Yeah.
Yes.
I knew. Yeah, I was like, I think that's where you're going.
Yeah, which is she's a fantastic author.
For sure.
I recommend looking her up.
And the theory behind that, just for if you're not familiar with that, is basically for people that I forget, go look it up. It's all over Instagram right now. But Brene Brown, it's her 100% theory, where one person isn't always going to be 100%. In a lot of relationships, one person feels like they have to carry that 100% or all of the burden, and I think what we've done a good job of is, if I'm at 10%, which happens, especially more often lately, but not so often the previous 2 years, you pick up as much of the slack as you can. Unfortunately, there's still going to be days where there's a middle there, but I know that, I'm aware of it when we talk about it. You know, we, as you said, the communication from day one. I mean, I told you I have bipolar day 3, so we've been talking about that every day, but when I'm doing well, I do try to pick up where you can't. Or even if you're still at 90, I still try and do as much as I can so you don't have to use that extra bandwidth until later.
I will say, too, on top of that, though, you put in a diagnosis of bipolar, it is that much harder to kind of navigate that, and just being aware of that again. And, like, just... Because it's easier said than done, but, like, as anyone, we all go through our struggles, and and just how we navigate that. But,
And we've had to navigate a lot. I mean, I don't think we've ever really fought, because I'm so, like, scared of, like, raising my voice. And I've wanted to. But where I was going is exactly that. I mean, there's been a lot of really difficult times. I mean, not necessarily between us, but for each one of us, you in school, this move has been really difficult, I think, and I mean, there have been times I've been able to pick up a little bit of the slack during this move, but I mean, we make it sound good here now, but it comes back to the communication. I mean, when I hit a really, really low point, I try and tell you. And you've done the same. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I just to add to that, I have to then also as somebody who doesn't live with bipolar 2, I kind of
Say whatever. That's why we're doing this. Don't hold back. You know that.
I have to be aware of all of this, too, and not if Lee is in a better mood or whatever it is, and he picks up slack when I'm not, feeling my best, or I'm really busy or preoccupied or whatever it is in that moment, I have to remind myself that he can't continue to do that all the time, because that's extremely exhausting for somebody that has bipolar, whereas maybe it wouldn't be as much, for somebody who...
But that right there is what sets you apart. That's what sets you apart. That's what makes...
I would say I'm self-aware.
Well, that's not even self-awareness. That's me aware.
Yeah.
I mean, that's because that's not only you being self-aware of your expectations and what you're doing, but you're taking your self-awareness to a Lee awareness level. And that's what we were talking. So to get in transition into that's kind of what we were talking about outside is it really just hit me today. And so that's kind of why I wanted to give you, I said her flowers on camera instead of just off, so that she actually understands that I think about this and all the time. But your ability to do a couple of things. First, mirror my emotion level, my energy level, and not to say that you, like I was saying outside, it's not that you just then sit around and sit on the couch with me for 2 hours and watch a movie, which I did the other day because my energy level went to absolutely zero out of nowhere. But you don't come in guns a-blazing going, oh, are you ready to go now? Do you want to go do this? Do you want to go do that? Do you want to do this? Oh, I'm sure you're going to be better if we just go do this. Why don't we get you out of the house? It's like, I literally was telling somebody today, if you were like that, we wouldn't be together. I don't think we would have made it 2 months. Like, it would just be absolutely driving me insane because from day one, you've tried your best to understand, you know, and somehow intuitively understood I can't push him right now. Maybe that, you know, it's developed over time, I guess, to go back to what you were saying earlier, is obviously we're making all of this, but remember, we've had 2.5+ years to figure all of this out. And none of it came naturally, I would say.
No.
And all of it's come through communication. I mean, the amount of times where, unfortunately, I talked to her way too much and beat a subject to absolute smithereens before death, before beating it down into the hole that it ends in. Unfortunately for you, and I apologize for that as much as I can.
But I will say, I feel like I communicate that. I'm like, Haley, I need some space.
Yeah, thank God, because this also wouldn't have lasted this long from your side, otherwise. But and that's an important point. Is somehow that you have to build that respect level. Is we have a deep respect because I know it's annoying, but I know you never are coming at it from a negative side. You might be annoyed as shit with me, and I know that, and I can tell, but you still don't hold it against me. You somehow in the back of your mind, from what I see, is it's like, all right, where are we on the bipolar scale right now? Because this is fun. But you somehow forgive me in the moment, you let it go, and you don't judge me. And if I'm in the middle of an episode, I think one of the first things that I know I'm in an episode if I start getting really upset with you. Like, because if all of a sudden I'm just getting upset with all the little shit and nothing that matters, I'm like, something's got to be wrong. Because I do respect you. I do, whether from that moment on in an episode or if I'm stable or running hot, I'm like, oh man, something's wrong. Because I always know that you come at it from an absolute place of meaning well, sincerity, of love. And so that's what's always made it easy for me.
No, I have 2 things to say.
Please.
And I don't know if...
Shut me up.
I don't know how off topic we've gotten.
Very. So continue.
But 2 things on what you said.
I think I want to get back to, or I know where I want to get back to.
Okay.
But go.
2 things. So the first one, you know, kind of back to what we said, where what you said about respect. I think it's really important. That's a really important aspect of it, especially within a relationship, because I can, you know, when you're cycling, whatever, you know, when you're cycling, I can directly ask you, you know, are you manic right now? Are you hypomanic? Are you depressed? And you're not completely offended and you shut down.
Right.
And then we're able to have that conversation and then go from there.
Right. Yeah, and that took a long time to develop. Because I didn't want to share with you at the beginning. I mean, I would just tell you
it's a very vulnerable position to be in.
I'm too effed up right now.
Yeah.
I have to spend a night alone. And things like that. So, but it did, because I mean, there's not a lot of people, you know, that I would want to tell that to, and now you're the only and first person I most of the time.
And then the second thing is kind of regarding, like, if you do get, you know, when you do get frustrated or, you know, really angry in those moments, I have learned, and I'm a very people-pleasing person. Which
we've worked on, because I've told you don't have to be for me. Yeah.
And, you know, it comes from...
And you can't
I'm a very kind person, and...
Yes.
You know, so it comes from that.
Understatement.
Yeah, so it comes from that. But I will say, in those moments when you do get very upset or angry, I don't as much anymore take things personally. Not at all, but it is very easy from any standpoint, especially if anyone who deals with any other mental illness or any other trauma or any other thing in their stressor in their life, when somebody gets really angry with you, it is like you can signal like a fight or flight type of response. Yeah. And it's very common, and that's very okay and very normal.
But it took me a while to get that.
But
It did. It took me a while to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel bad about that. I mean, because on the other side of it, you have somebody with mental illness
Mm-hmm.
who has dealt with
That's not a thought in your mind.
abandonment.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And other issues like that. And so, like, when I'm trying to discuss something or I'm really upset and trying to work through it and you shut down, I just assumed, incorrectly, by the way, and figured that out over time, but that, like, I was too much, you didn't agree, you didn't want to hear it, whatever. And over time, and I mean, I remember calling my dad one time and be like, I don't understand, I'm trying to blah, blah, blah. And he's like, stop. Now. Like, stop. Let me ask you, and he's like, yeah, dude, it's because it's tough. It can be really tough. And I knew that, and inherently I knew that, but I mean, it still happens, I mean, every once in a while I call my sister or my dad or, talk to somebody, and it's like, all I need is that reminder of like, bruh, she's living with you and you're bipolar, and I'm like, no, I get it. Because, like, I can't, there's so many days I can't stay living within my own mind that I can't imagine why you would want to stay. And I've learned that that's my own insecurities, and that's why I try not to bring them up. But, yeah, I mean, I forgot where we even, but,
yeah.
Well, it's just, you do so many things that make me feel comfortable, that lead to that respect, that have led to us to being able to have those really long, really deep conversations about what would help both of us navigate. And you have to do that, I would say, argue in any relationship, but especially with somebody who, at the drop of a hat, can go from an 8 out of 10 on an energy scale and a happiness scale to a fucking 2.
Mm-hmm.
It can happen like that.
Mm-hmm.
So for you to be able to understand that somehow over time, to the point where we are now, where I can just tell you, you inherently know what to do with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the respect couldn't be any deeper from me, because I don't know how you do it. I can't figure it out. So I wanted to have you on here too, because it's cool, because I think it can help people, because you have been able to have such a unique perspective on everything.
Mm-hmm.
But what else were you
No, I didn't finish what I was going to say for my second
I do
point.
that a lot, so good.
So I was talking about not taking things how it's really difficult to not take things personally, but at this I want it said that it's okay if you do take things personally, but to make sure that you take time for yourself. And just take time for yourself, and whether or not, whether you actually tell the person, I just need
it's communication.
some time, I need to just do my own thing. I need to zone out. I need to put headphones in. I need to do whatever it is. Or to kind of, to communicate exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
And if somebody decides to get mad again, you just, don't try as much. As easy as it's easier to say than to do, but
that
to not
really
take things
point.
personally is helped a lot. And I've always been somebody that takes things personally in my life, so this has been a learning
the growth
curve.
That from.
But it's helped tremendously.
Your ability to because I don't think you had an innate ability to do that at the beginning.
No.
But among everything else that you've done that has helped and worked, that ability alone is just incredible. I mean, I don't know how you do it. I'll just keep saying that. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. But so earlier, did we cover everything I was talking about outside? I thought there was one other thing that I talked about.
You were discussing with somebody earlier about me.
No, of course.
About me, and how I've kind of just helped you through this, and just the way I am with you and your emotions, and how I can navigate that with you and not completely overwhelm you when you're overwhelmed. And kind of how I think that is partially by personality, just who I am as a person, but I think a lot of my social work background has actually helped a lot through that, because...
So here's where I was going with it.
Okay.
I'm going to jump in because that's what I wanted to get into right now. So as usual, thank you for bailing me out of my own head. It's so true. It's all the time. what I was saying outside, what I was thinking about earlier is, I guess what I would call suggestive questioning. I don't know if this is a term, or you're a social worker, so maybe there is some sort of term out there. I'm sure there is. I can't be the only one, but it essentially, you ask a question with a suggestion in it.
Mm-hmm.
And she knows, because we've talked about it, all goes back to communication and
Mm-hmm.
teamwork, and how I wouldn't be here alone, and how much you help with that. But I can picture it last week. This is where it kind of came from. As I was laying on the couch, understandably, I had slept 5 or 6 hours. I was depressed as beyond. My dreams were insane, and I was up off and on. I mean, more than even normal, and I was just beyond exhausted. And you said, "Well, do you think it would maybe help if you went for a run? Did you think about it?" I think you actually asked, "Did you think it might help?" Or did you think about it? Because you didn't even want. You were just trying to plant the seed,
Mm-hmm.
without even so much as suggesting it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's this really fine line that you are really good at.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, and I mean, a lot of it comes with time. I mean, like I keep saying, we've been together 2.5 years. A lot of it comes with time, but where I guess I was going with that is where you are going with it now. So obviously, when I met you, you had 1.5 years left in school. You were going for social work. And I cannot help but over time keep thinking about these little glimmers here and there. I'm like, I think she's social working me, which I love. It's the most beneficial thing for a relationship to have. So I mean, not to tell anybody out there who's bipolar what they should be looking for in a relationship, but a social worker really helps. But I forgot where I was going with that. But because I was making the same joke. Literally, I've been making the same joke for the whole time. It's like I always said you were going to school to learn how to live with me the rest of your life. Learn how to deal with me the rest of your life, because slowly, as you got further into your schooling in your undergrad, and especially obviously when you got down to Madison for your master's, all of a sudden it's like, it would take me months. I don't want to say like I'm some sort of like evil genius who was picking up on these, but I do take some credit for being able to pick up on them over time. But I'd be like, oh, that was a different kind of question. It really worked. Nice. And in the moment, I'd be like, oh, son of a bitch. But it would shut me up.
Yeah.
And it would work. And so I know you're smart enough, and you are self-aware enough, and you are advanced enough,
Mm-hmm.
and stable enough,
Mm-hmm.
that you were able to be like, ooh, that worked. I'm going to do that again. And I can see that. But I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I wanted to do, and we probably, we can go to about a half hour. So we could, I don't know, we'll see where it goes. But I definitely want to hit here for a few minutes what it is, at least a couple of things that in your schooling that have specifically helped you in a relationship with me living with bipolar disorder. Or anything related to that topic. I don't want to pigeonhole you.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question.
Yes. First interview, remember, and off the top of the head, I'll take it.
I mean, one, within within the values of social work, that really focuses on the respect and integrity and dignity of a person, and kind of the self-determination of a person, and how they know what's best for them. They know what's right for them. They are the decision makers in their life. So, kind of, it's very easy to come storming in and being like, this is what you should do. This is exactly how you should live your life. Do all these things and you'll be fine. but it's
how would that have worked with me?
Yeah. So in social work, it's really providing those resources that support their education,
It's really,
being that person in somebody's life that is non-judgmental,
right.
objective.
Yeah.
and kind of just letting them, creating a space where they can make the best decision or choices or whatever it is for them. And, you know, I think just that overarching idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, you nailed everything. Yeah.
Is really important, you know, working with anyone with mental illness or bipolar or whatever, you know, because
I can just picture all of those things that you do.
You know what's right for you. You know, you
most of the time, arguably, but yes, and I know.
But I don't live in your head, you know.
I think I know when to ask for help. At this point,
right?
I think I figured out when to ask for help, and
and you know, you can't in social work. You can't make somebody do things. You can't force them to do something because you think it's the right thing. You just provide them with the space,
right,
to make the most educated and most knowledgeable decision for them in that moment, you know. And I just feel like I give you that space, and I give you
absolutely.
And you know, it's different because that's more of a social work.
You empower
aspect.
me.
Yeah.
Within reason.
Yeah, empower. That's the word.
You empower me within reason. I mean, I think that's the best way I could put it too. I mean, after all that, I mean, absolutely, because, I mean, what I haven't talked about or what we haven't talked about is this. I wouldn't be doing any of this, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, without you. I mean, there's no way in hell I would have been sharing my story in front of a room full of people without you telling me, telling me is the wrong word, but providing me with that encouragement, that confidence. No, you know what you're talking about. Your story's valuable. This, you know, just the small things. And seeing, one of the things you're so good at is intuitively seeing when I'm in my head or when I'm talking myself out of something. And so, yeah, I think, it's fun. It's funny listening to this. It's cool listening to this because it's like, I can remember when you did that. You know, and so it does all make sense. So.
You know, and I think in social work too, it's also about social justice and understanding that people are human, you know, and go through real life things. And
you've had to understand some real life things about my past.
Yeah. So, you know, just...
Some people have baggage. I got like a baggage claim behind me that she somehow has navigated through and been okay with and asked me a lot of questions. But truly, I mean, some people have baggage. You can't have much more baggage than I got trailing behind me. I mean, the only thing I don't have is like a felony, you know, or like a record. But other than that, I've got a record of all other kinds.
Yeah.
Truly. I like it when I break her. It's probably the only reason she stays with me after this much time. Comic relief after long days of serious social work. Except for when I'm depressed, then it's more serious social work.
Yeah. So, I don't even know. Like, that's a good question, you know, how my social work career, because, you know, you take classes about mental health and whatnot, but...
Couldn't prepare you, though.
Right. There's a difference between textbook bipolar and textbook anxiety and textbook other like mental disorders, you know, and versus actually like seeing it firsthand or working with it, like with, you know, patients or clients and whatnot.
And obviously I'm not a patient or client, so, and I think, to give you a ton of credit too, I think, would it be fair to say one of the hardest things to do, because I think two things are true. A lot of my time with you, I've been stable. Other than, I mean, I shouldn't, working towards it. And we weren't living together that close. But by the time you went to Madison and really up until this move, you know, there was a really down period there in November, but I was able to come and see you. So, you know, we were able to kind of work through that together. But is it fair to say one of the harder things to remember for you is that when I'm doing well, when I'm masking it well, when I present as really stable, that it's really easy to forget that I live with bipolar at times?
Yeah, 100%.
And how do you kind of, because it took a while, I feel like.
Well, and it still catches me off guard because you don't, when somebody's in a happy mood, it's easier to just go along with it than when somebody's, you know, in a depressive mood. You're like, oh, what's wrong? What can I do? But when you're giddy and want to do a ton of things and have all this energy, it's harder for me to like recognize that. But there are certain things, especially
like what?
Well,
this is interesting.
Yeah,
like what?
so there are certain things that do like stop me in my tracks.
Yeah.
And it's mostly I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah.
It's mostly when money.
Yeah.
I think when, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, like, yeah, we can totally do that, but let's have a conversation first.
Yeah.
And then, like, is this okay?
Yeah.
Are we
and
okay
that took
with
us a while
this?
to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then another thing that kind of stops me in my tracks, I think, is the way you just how do I want to say this?
Say it however you want to. I'm not going to be offended.
No, it's
Yeah.
no, I don't even know how to describe what I'm trying to say.
What are you trying to?
Yeah, so you're just very all over the place, you know, in your thinking and your conversation, and let's like it kind of with the money too. Let's do this, let's do that. It's like
Scattered.
It's very scattered, and then
impulsive.
You can kind of hear it in your voice, and then you can like feel it in your chest for you when you get very.
That's good, because I can feel it in my chest when it's like that too. Yeah.
Like you just feel very like light.
Yeah. Too light.
And
too light at times. That's how we end up with this being like 1/50th of the amount of books that I have. But hey, I get into Black History Month, and then behind me is all my you can't see but mental illness ones, and over there's basketball. It happens. It happens. At least those were cheap. They were used. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean that took us a long time to navigate. 'Cause, I mean, last summer I'll back up. I mean, I didn't know what hypomania was like. Mm-hmm. Right? So when I was undiagnosed and I was hypomanic, those were the days I thought I had the world figured out. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm fine. Life is totally fine. And then that chest feeling would come, and those completely unstoppable thoughts would come, and then I'd have to drink that night to cycle back over. So I had never experienced what ended up being an extremely extended run with hypomania last summer. And through no fault of your own, or my family, so I'm going to rope them into this too. Sorry, guys. But it's not your fault. Everybody just rolled with it. I rolled with it. Because as much as you can read about hypomania, and maybe we had, maybe we hadn't, I guess we didn't realize how sticky it can be, how persistent it can be, how dangerous and lasting it can be, until we went back and looked at all my credit card statements and how I felt and how I said yes to everything, and just really just ran myself completely ragged to the point that I had zero energy left whatsoever. So now that we had that experience, I kind of begged for your help. And I guess curious question. Is that something you fought against or didn't want to do, was try and help me? Not that you didn't want to try and help. Wrong word. Is that a responsibility in some ways you didn't want to take over because you could see, or you were afraid to offend me? Like basically being like, hey dude, you just spent like $200 and you want to go spend another $300?
Yeah.
We need to talk about this. Because that took a long time in our relationship to get to that point. It really did take a long time to get there.
Yeah, well, it definitely, when everything's really fun and exciting, it is hard to be like,
yeah.
Are you sure you're okay?
Well, it's not fair for you. You shouldn't have to do that. You should be able to enjoy the good days. But
it's, even trying to find the right wording,
Yeah.
It's like, how do I ask this?
Right.
How do I, am I going to offend him? Am I going to, am I going to ruin the mood of, this is so fun and exciting? You know?
Sometimes you have to.
Yeah. But it doesn't, I will say, once we do have those conversations, it's, okay, no, we're either good, or maybe we should dial it back a little. And
I think because I hit the point, well, last year was really hard. I mean, the end of that hypomania into depression was really, really hard, and I never wanted to go through that feeling again. Turns out a move led to that feeling again, but that was understandable. That wasn't due to me leaning into another 2 months of hypomania. I kind of was, but in this instance, I had to. And fortunately, the depression did hit depths that I haven't felt in a really long time, but it only, we're popped out a little bit quicker than normal.
But I think just to reiterate, like those check-ins are really important.
Yeah.
Even if it's nothing,
God,
it's nothing, and it's, I always say trust your gut, you know. And if
your gut's right.
And if you think that, you know, your loved one or your partner or whoever in your life is kind of, you know, going down, you know, a manic path per se, you know, to just be like, just check in. It doesn't, you know.
Yeah. And
remember too not to take things personally if, you know, somebody would get upset or whatnot.
It's hard.
But it's important because then, you know, you get the other person to start thinking too, and just opens
that's what
up.
it does.
It opens up room for conversation, which
it at least stops me. Is what I feel like it. If it doesn't stop me, it at least makes me think.
Well, it changes. It puts things into perspective.
Different perspective.
And I think change of perspective is huge in it.
Well, when I'm in that, I'm just on a one-track mind. No, I want a bird feeder and bird seed. To bring up a literal conversation I've had mostly in my head, but I had to verbalize it the other day because I was like, dude, I really want to go buy a bird feeder and bird seed. We got these cardinals. I saw a woodpecker today, so I still want to. But we might. But we'll see. I don't know. But it took me 2 hours that day to talk myself out of it. So it was the next day that I brought it up that morning because I get a one-track mind. It's really easy for me to get on a one-track mind and get really obsessed with certain things I really shouldn't be. And it turns out, like, it's fine. Especially a couple weeks later, a month later, whatever, and usually we find something I like even more, so you're usually right about it. But, I mean, to give a real-life example, I'll be on the bird feeder in TJ Maxx last week. I think 4 or 5 days ago. Yeah. And they had a lot of cool stuff that I really wanted. And so I literally waved you over. It's like, honey, I need you. I need you right now. I need you. And it was because I had like 8 things in my hand. And I was like, I don't know. And you were like, yes, no, yes, no. Are you ready to leave now? And I was like, yes. Because I do. I get, and it I don't know how to compare myself to anybody else. I don't know how to because I don't know what it would be like to not feel like this and have these thoughts. But when I'm in that, it's like, it's an addiction. It becomes such a demand and a need for me to do it. It's to satisfy that. So like it really is super valuable just to have somebody stop it. Stop that path line. Because like my thoughts will go around it, but it slows them down. It's like, okay, all right, we need to start widening these thoughts out, and and then sometimes you have to be like, no, honey, no, and it works. I think because we got to that point, getting back to the respect, the understanding, and going from there. So, yeah. Well, I think that's enough for today. We're 45 minutes in. I think this was really fun.
Way longer than I thought.
Yeah, and you weren't awkward at all. Maybe once or twice. But
it's hard for me to look at the camera.
But you don't need it. That's what I told you. Just talk to me this entire time. I told you at the beginning. Just talk to me. You did an incredible job. I will kind of end it here in a certain way. If you told me, let's set it here. If you told either one of us 2.5 years ago, when we met, the day I told you I had bipolar, that we would be doing a 45-minute video talking about bipolar, yourself, but mostly you sitting in front of a microphone and a camera, either one of us really, but you especially, no effing way. No effing way. So I think we talk about this all the time too, because it's important. It's really important. I think on top of the communication, not just about the bipolar, because I can dominate every minute of our day if we wanted it to, and we try really hard not to. I think what we do a good job is every once in a while we have these conversations where it's like, wow, I've come really far since we met.
Well, I think
you've come really far since we met.
Yeah. No, reflection is good, of the relationship, of you as an individual.
Yeah.
And it's hard to kind of sit down at the end of the day or whatever, if you have a journal, whatever form of reflection, even if those little thoughts like, oh wow, okay, I have come really far, they're important. they're important.
Unfortunately, I would never do anything else if I wrote all my reflections down on paper. It would take up my whole day.
But it's a very vulnerable spot to be in. I struggle with it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you're really good at it. I guess where I was going with that is we've come really far together. And I wouldn't be doing this without you. I like to take a little bit of credit for helping you edit papers and the really nerdy shit that I'm actually good at that can help you on the side and the communication side. But yeah, this is really, really cool. Thank you for being willing to do this after a long day of work and making yourself vulnerable too for 45 freaking minutes. You joined me on my entire vulnerability. This is going to be out there for the world. How weird does that make you feel? It doesn't make you feel better that 12 people are probably going to watch it at most, and we'll probably know half of them. Probably makes you feel better. All right, anyways, I'm just going to wrap it up. We might do this again. I'm probably going to come up with more stuff I want to talk about. This was a lot of fun. Probably anytime I can't come up with somebody else, I'm just going to drag her around and make her do it because she's way smarter than me, as you can all tell. And she brings not only a unique side of dating somebody with bipolar disorder, which is insanely hard, understanding as much about somebody but also having gone to school for it. You have letters behind your name.
I do.
What are your letters? Remind me. I should know this. I really should, but I don't.
MSW.
That's it? I thought there was there's more letters coming. I'm sorry. There's more letters coming. But she has that MSW, which is cool because I don't. And I always make that joke. So maybe what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that I put interview with my girlfriend, MSW. Because then there's some letters associated somewhat with me. Not with me, but you know what I'm saying? No, but just on the video because maybe somebody will click into it then. Because as we've long discussed, it's hard to have credibility with no letters and just living with bipolar. But I appreciate you for doing that for me. On my side of things, I did finally write again on the blog. Go check it out. I actually really liked that article. It was a tough couple of months, and I tried to sum it up in there as best as I could. Instagram, I'm probably over sharing and over doing too much on there, but I enjoy it and it's fun and there's a lot of people on there. It's been 2 months since I've done one of these, so the amount of people that I've even met in that amount of time, I guess, thanks for that. Go check that out. New t-shirts, United by Mental Illness, got a United by Mental Health one out there, so go check those out. Go check out the website. There is new stuff added. I'm not going to say all the time, but it's going to be more and more. I got one more question. How crazy do you think I am for doing all of this stuff? Yeah, that's basically it. That's the answer every single time. But you haven't talked me out of it. That's it. There we go.
I don't have any words.
That's all that matters. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching. Check out next time. Benefits of Bipolar Interviews. Maybe someday I'll actually have a good name. Take care, guys.